All right, good evening, folks. Welcome to the 2025 United Airlines NYC Half Expert Training Panel Series. If you're joining us here today, online or in person, we are on part 2 of a 3-part series. So let's go over some basics before we get into the meat of the session. The session is being live streamed today on New York Roadrunners YouTube page, which means that the recording will be available for you to view later, and there will be closed captions available. Please note that the closed captions are auto-generated, so they may not be 100% accurate, but we will try to speak as clearly as possible. Some logistical information for you folks here on site. We do have accessible and gender-neutral restrooms available behind us speakers or around the corner. And if you need an assistive listening device and you did not request one ahead of time, you are more than welcome to see my colleagues to my right at the desks here, and they can assist you. Also, we are happy to share that today we do have American Sign Language or ASL interpreters here with us, making it possible for many of our deaf or hard of hearing folks to participate in this event. Please do note that we will need to take possibly very short breaks or pauses to allow the ASL interpreters to rotate. The ASL interpreter here in person is all the way to the left of the speakers. So a quick run of show for tonight. We are going to have about 40-45 minutes of questions that we prepared for our expert panel here. Then we will have about 15 minutes or so for audience Q&A, which we will try to take questions from folks here in the audience and then also online. Coach Jen is going to be assisting us in watching the live stream, and she will come around with the mic when it's time for Q&A. So please hold on to your questions until then. As for who I am and why I'm talking so much, my name is Saman Wakad. I have the distinct pleasure of being able to moderate these panels and learn quite a bit. As far as my role here goes, I am the Diversity, Equity, and Social Responsibility Specialist here at New York Roadrunners, and it is my distinct pleasure to be able to ask our expert panel questions. So we do try to do physical descriptions for our panels that we do in person. That is just so our folks in the audience who are blind or low vision can also participate and know what is going on. So I am a South Asian woman. I'm wearing a lavender headscarf, dark, thick-rimmed glasses, a blue fleece with the New Balance and New York Roadrunners logos on the front in white. And I am now going to introduce our panelists. So to my immediate left is Steve Mira, who is one of my colleagues here at New York Roadrunners. Steve is the lead of runner training and education at New York Roadrunners. He is RRCA and V.02 certified, coaching runners in person and online every year. In the 10 years since he started at New York Roadrunners, Steve has been part of the group training launch, created weekly core strategy sessions, and coordinated the New York Roadrunners PACE team, which includes the TCS New York City Marathon. Steve found his love for running in cross country during his first year of high school. He picked up running again later in life and completed his first marathon at the 2010 NYC Marathon. Since then, his love for running has only grown to building community and helping others achieve their goals. You can find Steve pacing many of the New York Roadrunners races, and this year he will be pacing the 2-hour group at the United Airlines NYC Half. Steve?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm Coach Steve. I'm wearing a navy blue shirt that says Coach on it and some black, gray pants with orange, dirty, salty New Balance shoes.
That was a wonderful description. Did you describe the facial hair, Steve, this time?
I did not. I'll skip that this time.
Okay, folks, to Steve's left, we have Matt Farrell. Matt Farrell is the community lead for running at New Balance. Matt has been a runner his whole life, competing in high school and college. You can now find Matt competing around the city in 5Ks, half marathons, and marathons. Matt has seen much success as a high school coach as well, where he led North Atlanta High School Girls Cross Country Program to his 6A state title. Overall, Matt has a huge passion for running. He uses that love and dedication in his role with New Balance, where he works to connect with the local community, amplify their events, and ultimately create experiences that spark a love for running and everything around the sport. And this year, Matt will be running the 2025 New York City Half for the first time. Matt?
Yes, super excited for the race. I'm wearing a blue New Balance hat, black New Balance sweater, black New Balance pants, and black New Balance shoes.
No confusion there. Thank you, Matt. And last but not least, we have Courtney Pensavalle. I will let Courtney pronounce that name correctly with an Italian accent later. So Courtney is a licensed mental health counselor and mental health performance coach at Sportstrata, which is a private practice in New York City that treats elite athletes experiencing clinical mental health and performance-related challenges. In addition, Courtney is currently a doctoral student at Pace University, pursuing her PhD in mental health and wellness. Clinically, Courtney integrates a range of approaches, including cognitive behavioral therapies such as CBT, DBT, ACT, EMDR, somatic experiencing, internal family systems, motivational interviewing, and mindfulness. She works with adolescents and adults experiencing a variety of difficulties, including generalized anxiety, obsessive-compulsive disorder, eating disorders, body image concerns, trauma, and performance-related issues. A former Division I hockey player at Yale University, she's particularly passionate about working with young women and individuals that compete in elite performance spaces. In her spare time, Courtney plays recreational hockey all over the city, teaches yoga privately as an RYT and rock climbs. This is a lot going on in your, in your personal time, Courtney. So I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, hi, I'm so excited to be here. My name's Courtney Pensavalle, however you prefer. I have dark brown hair. I'm a cisgender heterosexual woman, wearing a plaid blazer, dark shirt, jeans, and red boots.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Courtney. Okay, folks, so we'll move into some questions we have prepared for the panelists. So how many of you folks in the audience are running this race for the first time? Okay, how many have run a half marathon before? Any half marathon? Okay, say about 2/3 have run a half marathon, about half are running this race for the first time. Wonderful. And when is this race? March 16th, okay.
I like the day before St. Patrick's Day. They know what's happening, you know? What are you doing after the half?
It's not like last year, it was on St. Patrick's Day. Okay, so March 16th, that's about 5 weeks, a little over 5 weeks out. So let's start with the most important thing that you want to be thinking about as you prepare for March 16th, right? So Coach Steve, we're going to start with you. What should runners be doing right now in regards to their training 5 weeks out?
Yeah, it's going to be different from athlete to athlete. It's going to depend on your training plan. It's also going to depend on where you started from. So a lot of athletes I know are doing, their long run is 15, 16 miles right now, but some people are doing 6, 7 miles for the long run. It really depends on where you came in at. But the habit of running hopefully has, for the first timers, the habit has formed. You know you're doing a run on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, or whatever your weekly schedule looks like. So we're going to keep that habit up. But the long runs are going to be getting longer, and the harder runs are going to be getting harder. So the key right now is recovery, and make sure you're sleeping enough or sleeping better throughout the night, because sometimes we can't sleep more, but we can get better sleep. Make sure we get nutrition in us so we can recover properly. And then I know Courtney will talk about it, make sure our confidence in what we're doing is also still there. Because I think the honeymoon phase of training, it's kind of over, like, oh, another interval run coming up, another long run, and sometimes that can be a drain on you. But it's really important to know your why. Like, why are you running this race? I write that down as many times as I've done a half marathon. I write down my why and what's my story. So as I leave the door at 5 a.m. before the family wakes up, I know why I put those shoes on. That's important for like all athletes, no matter how many times you've done this, to know why you're actually doing it.
Wonderful. As I say sometimes, we like to give life advice here too. Write down your why. Why are you doing this? You should know 5 weeks out, right? Next, Matt. So it's cold out, right? We can see how great the weather was today. Kudos to all of you who've showed up here in person. So it's cold out, so we're going to talk a little bit about clothing here. Where should runners start with buying cold weather gear? And what about when it's raining or snowing like it was today?
Yeah, I mean, the first place that everybody should start with is with their shoes. So everybody has to find the right fit for them. So you can come see our lovely associates at the New Balance store here at New York Roadrunners, or any of your local running stores, where they can get you into the right fit for your daily training needs. They'll be able to ask the right questions, whether you're an introductory runner, an expert level runner, and they'll figure out the best fit for you. And those shoes are going to be able to carry you through days like today where it's sleeting in the morning, or if you're getting out there a little bit later where it's just wet all over the sidewalks. A good pair of shoes will be able to carry you for those miles. But everybody also needs a handful of pieces to wear when they're outside too. And I always like to recommend, especially for the cold weather months, you have a couple different options because you're going to fly through this gear because it's wet, because you're still running in the cold, so you're still sweating in this, and you don't want to be doing laundry every single day. So a couple base layers, whether that's a New Balance Athletics tee, and then a couple outer garments like some tights, some sweatpants, or even just like a seasonal premium jacket like we have with New Balance, something to keep you bundled up, wick that sweat away, wick that water away if it's snowing or if it's raining, so you can keep going and log those miles that you need to perform your best on race day.
And for those base layers, do you recommend that they be sweat wicking?
Yeah, so that's one of the biggest keys that we're looking for. A lot of New Balance's NB dry material will be able to wick that sweat away and make sure that when you stop running, you're not standing there in a piece of wet clothing just freezing, waiting to come back inside.
Nobody wants that. Thank you, Matt. And Courtney, as we're looking out 5 weeks into the future, I guess. So throughout training, runners are going to encounter setbacks. Some runners here or watching in the audience online, that may have already happened with them, right? And one of those setbacks that they may come across is the mental fatigue of training, and Coach Steve sort of touched on this a little bit. There's more miles, more early mornings, hopefully, and more of just everything to do with training. How does one keep training through the setback of mental fatigue?
Yeah, mental fatigue. I think a lot of what Coach Steve was saying with finding your why is a pretty important place to start. And I'm imagining most people watching have their why for the upcoming race. And sometimes, I'll have athletes like write that on their arm or have it on a Post-it note on their mirror. But it's really important to have that kind of what we call process-oriented why. So it's not really related to how you do in the race. It's really related to kind of a more spiritual or like a deeper sense of meaning. Like, why are you doing this, right? Because we're not doing it, for the outcome. So that's something to think about. And then I think a lot about process over outcome, which I'm kind of alluding to already, right? But there's a lot of outcome-oriented thinking when we're just engaging in sports in general, but thinking about a race, thinking about your timing and pacing. And so a lot of what I try to redirect our focus towards, especially, this far out, because you want to be able to have the process-oriented mindset working for you when you're in the race, is thinking about what you can focus on that's completely in your control. So we talk about the acronym APE. So attitude, preparation, and effort. So those are things that are entirely in your control. And so that's something to think about, like, how can you maximize your attitude? How can you really trust your preparation and what you do to make sure you're ready to go each time you train, and then your effort, and trying to really maximize on those things. And your definition of success every day is not how you did or how you felt, it's how you were able to meet those milestones on what we can control or the process. So that's something I think is really important when you're training, to have that kind of mindset to bring you through, right, like to race day.
Awesome. So if I can recap really quickly, know your why, right? Write it down every day if you'd like.
And I think that why doesn't need to be, it can change from race to race. My why started off, fastest I can get to the finish line. That was my why. I want a PR, I want to Boston qualify, and then it was I want to run with someone, or I want to beat someone, or it could be I want to finish, or I want to have the best nutrition I've ever had for this race. Or I'm running for a charity, and that charity means something. So I think the why can change race to race, but it's going to really depend on individual and why you signed up for this race in December, many, many weeks ago.
Yep. So know your why for this race specifically, whether or not you've done a half marathon, whether or not you've done this half marathon before, and prepare now for the physical aspect of it, right? Because we don't want folks buying new running shoes a week out, 2 weeks out, right? We want folks to have them either now or buy them now. And those base layers, if you don't have them, is the long run, right? Some of you, this might be the longest run you've ever done in your entire life, which is great because you're going to do great in it. It's going to be your first one. So Matt, we'll start with you this time. From a gear standpoint, how does one dress to run when it's really cold? I know we talked about this, but I think when folks haven't done this before, the more preparation, the better. Is it ever too cold, like it was just a few days ago in late January?
Yeah, I think us being from the Northeast, we're a little bit more bred to handle the cold weather. I think if you're from down south or coming from somewhere else, 10 degrees might be a little bit too cold, so you might stick to the treadmill. But for those of you guys that are braving the chilled temperatures out there, you want to find a couple pieces that you can just trust. I definitely, in my arsenal of running clothing, have a few jackets, tights, whatever that I look for when I'm going out for those 10-degree days, because you still want to be able to perform. You don't want to just be warm. You want to be able to perform while you're warm. So definitely look to get those base layers like we talked about before, but then layer that with the outer layers that we have. So at New Balance, we have a technology called NB Heat, which runs through a lot of our quarter zips, a lot of our jackets. It's almost like this quilted material that helps insulate a lot of the heat while you're running, but then also helps to wick away a lot of the sweat that you're generating while you're out there. So we have a lot of that great stuff to wear on top, and then we also have a few great pieces of tights that we just released this year, athletics for the men, and then our NB sleek tights for the women. They have great pockets. So those side pockets, if you need to carry your phone, because if you're out there for 2 hours running around, you might need to check on the kids, or you might need to check your Ring doorbell or something like that, or you need to pay for a Gatorade while you're out there. So definitely has a lot of pockets. For the women, we have a bunch of different sizes for inseam, so 25, 27, 29, depending on all shapes and sizes. We have a tight for everybody that just feels really good, feels really soft, and has a lot of utility. And for the long run, when it's cold, you need the utility, you need the pockets, you need the warmth, so you need that NB heat. And all these pieces are something that can be your key piece for when you go out for that first 2-hour long run or something that you're training for.
Thank you. So I did group training with New York Roadrunners last winter, and I'll give it a second. I did group training last winter with New York Roadrunners, and some days were very cold, but based on advice that some of our coaches gave us, some of our staff, we layered up really well. And the days we were layered up, we didn't feel the cold, right? And as you run, you get a little warm anyway. So that's some great advice. Thank you. And Courtney, so you know, as folks are running, they're training, it can be difficult trying something new like this, or even if somebody has run a half marathon, the process can be a little difficult, and there may be internal mind games that are happening, right? So for many runners, especially new runners, how does one approach or prepare for the long miles ahead and the sort of internal mind games that come with it?
Yeah, so there's a few things that I like to recommend to my athletes. One is thinking about like a routine or a race plan, which I'm sure folks are kind of familiar with maybe, but just thinking about how to break the run up into different segments and thinking about process-oriented goals or things that you're working on, so you know, throughout each segment. And then I think a lot about like cues. So we can have internal or external cues. So an internal cue might be a mantra that you're keeping in mind, or it might be, you know, something that we think about is like, if you had the best coach in your head right now, what would they be saying to you? Or it could be an external cue, focusing on the trees that you're running by, or focusing on lifting your knees up as you take strides. So those types of cues can really get us back into our body. And the whole point is that they kind of reset our mind. And so a lot of the times we have physiological arousal or anticipatory anxiety when we're running. Maybe even being like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna make it through, right? This upcoming race. So when we focus on those cues, we focus on our race plan or our routine, we're really able to get back into the body. And when we're able to get back into the body, we end up kind of being able to calm our nervous system and like reset and focus on, you know, where we need to be in that part of the training. So that's something that those are some little bite-sized like skills that I think about for mental performance that can be really helpful with mental fatigue.
And do you suggest folks journal or log online or something like that to help them with the process?
Yeah, definitely. I think especially as you're training, a fun kind of part of training can be thinking about what cues work. So maybe actually like thinking about even a friend's voice or your coach's voice rooting you on or directing you to your technique can be really helpful. Sometimes it's really orienting to your environment or taking a deep breath or focusing on one aspect of your technique. So maybe trying some of these things and seeing which ones are sticky and kind of resonate and which ones aren't as sticky, so that you can know on race day that like kind of what you want in your toolbox with regard to mental skills based on what's worked as you've been training.
Awesome, thank you. And now, Coach Steve, from a coaching perspective, what is the best way to prepare for the longer runs, and how should one be approaching it from a physical aspect?
Yeah, I think a lot of the long run is an important run of the week. A lot of coaches say it's the most important run, and to some effect, I think it is. But it's always a small, gradual increment climb every week, and then some weeks you go down. So while there's pressure on a long run to make sure you get in those 8 miles, those 9, those 10, whatever your long runs are, you gotta remember you still have 3 or 4 other runs throughout the week that you need to do well in. So I think a lot of people put so much stake on that because it's the closest you're gonna get to that mileage. But if we're just getting long runs in and not getting those easy regular runs in, those recovery runs, those long runs are just gonna seem a little bit harder. So I always make sure we are recovering either before those long runs or after those hard runs. Because if an athlete's going out there and doing all the recovery runs, the easy runs, way too fast, those long runs are going to be even harder because they're not prepared for them. So make sure that you are taking every run has a purpose. So every run, those tempo runs, those fartlek runs, those intervals, those easy runs, they are done with a purpose to prepare you for the following run, which is a long run. As I said before, those long runs are gradual. So hopefully you're following a training plan. Some training plans will do an 8 mile and a 6 mile, and then a 10 mile and a 6 mile, while some might go up in a staircase and then back down. No matter what your training plan is, it's most likely working for you. Follow that training plan. It's hopefully designed for you by a coach, by a system. I don't like static plans, but there are static plans that work for people. We have some road runners, so make sure you're kind of following that. But it's a guide. It's written in pencil, so trust yourself. If you're saying to yourself, oh, that 8 miles, I'm not feeling it. I just got back from a long vacation. I'm just going to do 6. Just do 6. It's okay. The goal for all of us, our number one goal for March 16th is to get to the start line healthy. No matter what your secondary goal is, that is all of our goals. So that's the first thing we need to remember with those long runs, because that's usually where people will push their pace or push their distance because it says, my plan says 8 miles. I must do it, right? It's okay to pull back a little bit and strength train for 20 minutes instead of that long run, which might have put you over the edge for an injury. So take your time out there. Those long runs are about time on feet, not always pace. So get this time on your feet on those long runs and focus on nutrition as well, because how you train your gut and your stomach for those long runs is going to help you in the race. If you can't practice those in the training, it's going to be really hard on race day to take a gel at mile 6 or 7 if you haven't practiced that.
Wonderful. And since you mentioned, I was actually going to bring this up, your gut and nutrition, right? So if folks did not attend the last training panel that we did, or you haven't watched it online, we went into great detail on nutrition and the things that you should be thinking about, how you should be preparing prior to runs, and also long runs as well, and race day. So given that we are a little over 5 weeks out from the United Airlines NYC Half, and our next panel is actually about a week prior to the half. So folks are probably going to start tapering off for the half marathon 2 weeks prior, so which will be happening before the next panel. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the taper here today. So Courtney, we'll start with you. Can you talk to us about ways that one can mentally prepare for that 13.1 mile journey through the streets of New York? Obviously, we just talked about the long run, then there's going to be the taper, and then they got to mentally prepare for race day, right?
Yeah, definitely. I started to get into this a moment ago, but I think it can be really helpful to think about kind of your race plan, and oftentimes we're thinking about the physical training or the nutrition or taking care of our bodies, which is essential, but also mentally. We can prepare for that in different ways, and some ways I do with my athletes is mental visualization or imagery. So we have unlimited mental reps which is what we love to say at our practice. So if you're wanting even to kind of record on your phone, like a visualization, mile by mile or segment of the race by race, and kind of listening to it and allowing yourself to visualize what that's going to be like. Or say you go run the route beforehand, and then you want to kind of journal and make some notes, really figuring out like how you can kind of familiarize your body and your mind with what that's going to be like is going to likely reduce the potential anxiety or arousal or any kind of like anxiety that's not helpful, I should say, because we want a little bit of anxiety that you might be feeling on race day. So that's something that I think a lot about with my athletes and preparing. We can do it in a lot of different ways, but sometimes we don't think about the mental side, and that can actually really help when we're getting to mile 8 and our plan is to take a gel or to think about really focusing on your form or pacing because you're tempted to kind of run faster at that point or whatever, right? So really writing that out and doing your due diligence with the mental side can be really, really helpful once you get to race day.
That's wonderful advice. Control what you can at this point, right? And prepare yourself mentally. And Coach Steve, what types of workouts do you prescribe your runners during that taper phase? And how does the taper affect runners on race day?
For a lot of runners, first timers especially, it can be one of the hardest parts of training. It is because you play mind games in that last week. Can I do more? Should I have done more? I'm actually going to do 12 miles this week, even though my plan says go down in mileage. Everyone plays those games. Trust your training plan. Trust your coach. You trusted that plan 10 weeks, 12 weeks out. So trust it the last week or 2 weeks. It's down to a science, that taper phase. I call it sharpening for my athletes because they're really sharpening what we're doing in those last week or 2 weeks leading into it. The workouts are still there. We're not cutting the workouts out. You might still be doing a tempo run. You're still doing easy runs. You're doing strides, but it's just less of them. So if you're running 4 days a week during your hard times, you're probably still running 4 days a week, but instead of 5 miles, you're doing 3 miles. You're doing, maybe if you're on the track, if anyone's doing track workouts, instead of, 6 repeats, you're doing 4 of them. So we're just doing less of them. We're getting our body rested and recovered. But always fall back to how you're feeling, especially in the taper phase. If you're feeling something on the knee or the calf, tell yourself to rest. Because the mileage you do and the hard work you do in the taper phase will not actually help you so much during the race. It takes 2 weeks about for a body to take that workout into effect. So you can't get faster in the taper. We're trying to really get healthy or stay at where we're at right now because we're not getting faster in the taper. So really take your body into consideration. If your hip feels tight, take the mileage down, take the pace down, or take the run off and sleep and eat nutritious food. That's really the number one goal for the taper phase. And then once again, work on that confidence. Look at that mirror. Why did I sign up for this? Am I raising money for a team for kids or for a charity? You really dial that in. I agree with visualization. What does it feel like running through the course? Or look at videos online. How am I going to feel going through Central Park with people cheering my name at the finish line? Because that will help you stay motivated for the last week or two of the course.
How will you feel running through Times Square? It's closed for you.
Times Square also.
Closed down for you.
The best part.
Okay, great advice there, Coach Steve. And Matt, we talked about gear, what kind of gear folks should buy, recommendations for that gear. But how do folks figure out if it's working for them? Are there things that runners should be looking for now in regards to their shoes especially to know that they are right ones for race day?
Yeah, so your gear when you're training, it's right when you really don't feel anything. It's wrong if you're getting a lot of chafing or if your goos aren't coming out of the pocket perfectly when you're running. You would definitely know if the gear isn't working. But to know it is working is if you don't feel anything at all. If it disappears, if you don't even have to think about it, you can just focus on your run, focus on having a good time with your training partners, and just getting through those miles without any problems whatsoever. As far as getting stuff for race day, we talk a lot about race day shoes nowadays with all the different technology that's out there. A lot of this stuff can be overwhelming if you aren't familiar with that sort of product. So if you're thinking about getting a carbon-plated shoe like a New Balance SC Elite or an SC Trainer or just something different for race day, get it a few weeks out and maybe practice one of your long runs with those shoes. If you're getting a certain tight or singlet or jacket for the race, buy that a couple weeks in advance so you can practice with it and you can feel confident, like we keep saying, on race day, so you can have the best race possible. A lot of times when we get this race day product, we're wearing it every couple months when we get into these races, so it should be something that you feel extremely confident wearing, where when you put it on, you feel ready to go, and you feel like you can be the best that you could possibly be on that day. So again, this race day product and getting ready for everything should just be all about being confident and feeling like you're ready to go.
Great. And I think as one of our experts before said, when we were talking about nutrition, that boring is okay. You have your routine set. You have your specific gear that you're going to wear on race day. You have your meal that you're going to have on race day. You have your gels or whatever set out. Boring is totally fine because you don't want to find out if that new product is going to impact you negatively on race day, right? And cause additional stress. Okay, awesome. So folks, we'll move into audience Q&A in a little bit. So if you have any questions, hold on to those. Folks that are online, Coach Jen is diligently watching that live chat. We'll get to those questions as well. And before we move on to audience Q&A, I wanted to ask you all if you have any final piece of advice for those running this year's United Airlines NYC Half. And I will let you choose whoever goes first.
I'll go first. This NYC Half is my favorite half marathon I've ever ran before, and I've run a lot of them. The course is beautiful. The weather is usually beautiful. Knock on wood. I've always had the privilege to pace this race, and I see runners smiles as they go into Central Park, whether it's just because they're completing the race, they're getting a goal time, they've raised money for it. It is a race like no others, and people are coming. You guys are locals, but people are coming to New York City to run this race, to run through Times Square, because no one's there, like you said before, and we get to experience that. We experience the city day to day, and to have these iconic streets closed, 42nd Street, FDR, Flatbush, to have these streets closed for us is a moment. So no matter what your goal time is, no matter what your goal is, if you hit that goal on March 16th, our goal is to get to the start line, and our goal is to get to the finish line. What happens in between is kind of left up to whatever you believe in and how your training went, but those are kind of how we set up for success for our next race.
Awesome. Matt?
I would say just have fun. Like, running is fun, and it's supposed to be fun. So as somebody who's run a ton of races, the best ones that I've ever had were when I'm bouncing around at the start and I'm talking to my friends and joking around and having a good time. So find your favorite product that's out there. Find your favorite orange pair of shoes or your favorite singlet that you've worn since high school, and find your group, find your pace group, and use that energy and just have fun, because like Coach was saying, the streets are shut down, and this is a moment for you. So enjoy it and run the best that you can.
Great. Please find those products now, not 5 weeks later. Courtney?
Yeah, I mean, you both, I think, said it
Sorry, you're
pretty
last.
well. Thanks a lot. No, I think, coming from a mental health perspective and a mental performance perspective, thinking about your surroundings and really taking it in and really connecting to your senses and feeling your feet on the ground and what your feet feel like in your shoes and your body feels like in your gear, like really allowing yourself to savor that experience, because that's something that you're going to hold and kind of take in. And maybe, it's going to inspire you to run more races with New York Road Runners. But just thinking about, like, this is the moment that you really get to savor and enjoy, and just like, it's the best to be running and have your name like screamed to you. It's amazing. So really making sure that that's a priority, or even a part of your race plan, is like listening for, or really sensing the race, was what I would say. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we do have some wonderful crowds here in New York City. We are known for that. We do like to say it's the best place to run. And we do hope you get the running bug, because once you get it, from what I hear, it's hard to get rid of it, right? You keep signing up for the next race and the next race and the next race. Okay, so we will go ahead and move into audience Q&A. And lucky for you all, we have a small group today, probably because of this wonderful weather that we've had. So we'll probably get to most questions in the audience. So if you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand. Coach Jen will come around with a mic. All we ask is that if you want to mention your name, you can, if you're running this race for the first time, and just try to keep your question a little brief, please.
She's got a microphone for you, just so we can hear you online.
Yes. I have a question. So I signed up for 2 races, for half marathon and virtual half marathon. And they can be done like about a week apart, the maximum. How it will fit into this strategy that you mentioned, the taping strategy?
So your question is, how do you run a half marathon a week apart, basically?
No. Should I take them on the same day, week apart?
When should you do the virtual one, and when should you do the in-person one?
They can be done
I think at the same
maximum
time,
a
yeah.
week apart.
Yeah.
Or they can be done at the same day. I'm not sure. That's why I'm asking.
I would check. I don't know the virtual side as much as I should. I would check when the timeline is. Sometimes the virtual races can be done on the date of the actual in-person race. So check that. I could look after this talk if you want to look together. There's a date range. If you can't do it on the same day, you want to like a week ahead of time, just treat that last one maybe as a very slow, long run. Take your time with it. Don't go over speed because you're probably saving yourself, I'm assuming, more for the in-person race and the fun of that. But look at the dates because sometimes you can do it on the day. I know for the TCS New York City Marathon, it can be on the day of the marathon, also before it.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's a question right behind you.
Hello. So this will be my first time racing. So I wanted to see if there were any pointers you have for the United Half course specifically, and also any tips you have for running a race on a road where you're sharing the space with other runners in general.
I'm not an expert in the route, so I'll leave that to my lovely friends up here. But I think running for the first time when you're surrounded by others, and I know it can get crowded in moments and be less so, is really thinking about checking in with yourself and thinking about also allowing yourself to orient, right? Like maybe you've been running with a small group or you've been running with, even on your own, and now you're surrounded by maybe hundreds of people. So something that I like to do to kind of calm my nervous system in those moments is a little overwhelmed by, and a little stifled by people around you. So that's just from a mental health perspective what I think would be helpful, yeah.
First off, congrats. You're going to crush it. It's going to be super cool. But for your first time, definitely, one, give yourself time to get to the starting line. There's going to be a bunch of people and a bunch of different corrals. You don't want to be rolling up 5 minutes before the race starts, trying to figure out, oh, I'm in corral C. Where is that? Everything. I have to go to the bathroom. Where are my shoes? So give yourself time to get there and navigate those crowds. But as far as to show up,
We'll have a whole timeline of depending on what time your corral and wave night, we'll have a whole timeline for you on a website when that gets released. It depends on your start time and stuff.
and then as far as racing that day, there's going to be a lot of energy. There's going to be a lot of people. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they end up not sticking to their plan. So don't go out too hard. Don't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement and, oh, there's the 2-hour pace group. Oh, there's this friend. I'm going to go run with them. Stick to your plan. Like Coach was saying, trust your training. Trust your plan on race day, too. And don't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement while you're out there. It's fun, but just don't get caught up in it.
Yeah, this is one of the best first-time half marathon courses in the world. There's a reason it's my favorite half marathon course. I mean, you start right outside beautiful Prospect Park that a lot of us have ran by. You run in the park, you run down amazing Flatbush. Over the bridge, you get FDR, you get 42nd Street. You run, as I said, Times Square into Central Park. So, I mean, it's one of those courses. We were talking before this about the difference between the RBC Brooklyn Half and then this one, and which one is like better, worse, all that kind of stuff. And the reason I like this course so much is because it seems like every street you kind of go on is different from the street you were before. And all those sections I mentioned were just different sections where you can open your eyes and look up and look, wow, I'm by the Barclays Center now, but wow, now I'm running over the bridge, or now I'm on FDR. Like, there's just so different from itself within this course. So enjoy it. If you're someone that likes to take pictures out there while you're running, to really enjoy this course, have fun. And just, like I said before, go out nice and conservatively early on and have fun with it. Stick to your goal.
And I was going to suggest, I don't know if you're running on your own, but if you are, maybe think about joining some of our wonderful run clubs around the city so you can run with other people, kind of get that experience. Obviously on a much smaller scale, but it's other human beings that you're running with as well. Do we have any other, I think we have one as well.
Hi. I see ads on Instagram for like scraping. What's your go-to recovery method, and what do you think about scraping?
With scraping, specifically, be careful. It's something that you can either do really too hard and rip your Achilles apart, or not do it hard enough and not get any benefit. So I would have somebody like a PT or a trusted doctor or a friend or something do it for you first and try that. But overall, I think rolling out a foam roller or one of those stick rollers, it acts the same sort of way, and you can do it all the time for whatever benefit you're really looking for, whether that's, oh, my quads are sore, or my calves are sore, or whatever, but rolling out for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's a lot of massage recovery tools out there, really good marketing for them. I think the best recovery you could do, sleep, eat right, and foam roll are like my 3 go-to no matter what type of athlete you are. First timer or you're an elite athlete. Those 3 are the recovery tools that get good food in you, sleep or recover really well, whether it's naps, whether it's off your feet for one day, and foam roll. And that's kind of what most people will need. Everything else might benefit a little bit, but also can hurt you depending on if you do it right or wrong.
I have a question about priority of the training. 1 month before the race, and I think I'm a little bit behind because this winter is so brutal, and sometimes I got sick. So, for example, I do long distance running, speed, tempo, and jogging. But if I need to cut off someday, what is the priority? What is the most important? And for example, I have been lazy in January, so should I increase the amount or just keep the same amount?
I love that you said you're lazy, because I am too. First of all, you're not behind. Behind who? Like, you're not behind. You're where you need to be in this training cycle. We all started, there's like, 20 people in here. We all are different places in our training plan. Some people, I bet in this room, are doing a long mile run of 15 miles this weekend, while some are doing 6 miles. It is all where you need to be. So don't think you're behind in mileage or behind where you're training. Life happens when we're training. So we get injured. We have a snowstorm that disrupts this morning's workout. It's 8 degrees. I'm not running when it's 8 degrees, y'all. So like it's all part of training. I mean, life gets in the way of it. We're not paid to do this. We paid to do this and have fun while doing it. So always remember, once again, what's your why doing it out there? What's going to get you out the door? And know that you're human and you're going to miss runs. That is okay. With that said, to your second part of the question, I don't like prioritizing workouts because then it shows the last one on the thing. I'm going to skip the last one. I'm not going to the track type of thing. It's really what is going to get you out the door today. What's going to get your shoes on and say, I'm going to run. Is that a longer run? Is that what's going to spark fire in you? Or you know what, the easy 3-mile easy run, is that going to spark fire in you? For some people, they want the track because that's going to get the heart rate going, the motivation going, or they're going to get the trails and get out of the concrete jungle. So the most important run is the one that you are going to do, not what the type of workout is. It's all about mileage. Half marathons is getting the miles in, time on your feet, and it's going to depend person to person for that answer, if that helped. I know it wasn't an answer, but was it an answer? You wanted me to say, like, long run, do that, which it is important. Don't get me wrong, but if you got to get other runs in, and what makes it fun to you also.
Thanks, Coach. Do we have any questions online, Jen?
We do. We have 2 logistical questions. So the first one is, will we be able to drop off clothes at the finish line to put on after the race?
Yeah, so we'll have bag drop in wherever the start line is by Washington Eastern Parkway. There's bag drop. I think for this, you get a clear bag, I believe, when you get your race bib at Center 415. So you'll get a clear bag and you drop that off and you pick it up in Central Park afterwards.
And then the other question is, when will we get details about bib pickup and the expo?
So the experience will be at the same location as previously, Center 415. I think that's online. If not, congratulations, Center 415. I was there today. So it better be there because that's what we toured this morning. And the question about start times, was that it? Bib pickup it'll be. I mean, the experience will be the 3 days beforehand: Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I don't know the hours, but I believe it's same as last year. And that'll be closer to the race. Right now, focus on I love the question, but focus on training. Bib pickup, start times, waves. Don't need to worry about that right now. Get the miles in. Good question, though.
That's it.
And Coach Steve, you mentioned, since we were talking about the experience, is there a course strategy at the experience as well?
Wow.
This year?
Yeah. Yeah, so at the experience, if you'd like, we're going to go over the course mile by mile, kilometer by kilometer, turn by turn, so you know kind of what to expect on this course. So every turn, every uphill, downhill, what your pacing should look like. It's going to vary by person. And we do that every hour, sometimes every half hour at the experience. It's a lot of fun. Come on, check it out.
Yeah, so the reason why I mention that is because sometimes as you're preparing for these races, there's a lot of stress around the pace team or the course strategy or other things, and that's why we have the experience. So 3 days prior to the race, you will join thousands of other New Yorkers and people from around the world and come up, pick up your bibs and learn a little bit more about the course strategy, how to join a pace team, and other great information. So don't stress yourself out on that information.
I also think a lot of people stress themselves out about March 16th. They think it's this test, this exam we're doing for our training. We trained for 10 weeks, and now it's the final test. But I think even from mental health, it's your celebration, right? This is what we're celebrating, all the hard work we did. So we wrote down what we wore. We're not wearing anything new because you don't want to put a test on you. So everything you have on is something you tried, it's tested, it's performed well in training. And then we're celebrating all of our training that we've had for the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And so try to keep that in your mind. We're not testing you out there. Everyone gets a medal no matter what their time is. So really celebrate where you are. And if you don't get your gold time, you still get the medal. And no one's going to know because no one's going to say, what was your time? They're going to say, how was it? And you're going to say, amazing.
Yep, show up as healthy as possible and celebrate that you made it there. Any other questions from the audience here or online, Coach Jen? Oh, we have one in the audience.
Hi, this is my first time running a half marathon, and I was just wondering if you have any tips on mid-race eating, like what snacks to get, like gels and things like that, and when to eat.
I would say there's a lot of product out there now. So whether you're using Martin or if you're using like Smarties or like candy or something like that, like try it out before you get to race day, of course. So on your long runs now or during your workouts, grab a few pieces of fueling and try those out. For the half marathon distance, I don't know the exact grams or cals to take exactly, but usually it's like 2 to 3 gels you could take throughout a half marathon. Myself, I take 1 or 2. It depends on, 1, how long you're out there, and then 2, what your experience with that stuff is as well. And also like what your gut can take. Some people can't do the gels, so some people use candy instead, or they use crackers or something like that. So practice with different stuff. And see how that works in your training for sure.
Yeah, this is where you practice that, as you said. If you start on race day, like I'm going to try it, not just because it's something new on race day, but your stomach won't handle it while running. Like it is not the most comfortable thing running and eating a gel or a Snickers bar or whatever you do. So you got to practice that now. We will have Martin on the course this year, so that'll be out there on the course. So I would say practice with that first. You could buy it online, the feed or something like that. And so you can start with that and see if that works for you. There's the caffeine and non-caffeine gels, just because that's out there, so why not try that? But there's so many different varieties. You can have the Fleet Feet right over here. You can check that out. There's a lot of good product there.
And also, if you want more information on nutrition, since this is your first half, as I mentioned, the last session that we did, I think on January 9th, that was a very detailed session on nutrition and a lot of great tips on what you should eat when, if you want to go check that out. There's no transcripts, but you can turn on closed captioning, or you can play it at a high speed, which is what I do. Coach, and anything online?
A few more questions. The first one, will there be any course strategy before the expo that people can come to?
Gotta come to the experience. Check it out at the experience.
Is the 3-hour cutoff a hard stop?
No. So I don't remember the last 3. I don't remember the last time that the course will close. It is a soft close. It is when our permits kind of end at whatever that time is. There's what's called a sweep bus. I don't like that term, but that's what they call it. It's a sweep bus that kind of gradually goes at a 16 per mile or 13 per mile pace. And it tells the water stations, hey, start closing down because we got to open the FGR day.
And then the last question, any tips for dressing? This is a little challenging because we don't know what the weather will be the race day. But any tips for how to dress for the weather expected on that day?
We
The
don't
average
know.
is mid-30s, but
Is that what it normally
that's
is,
average,
like
yeah.
mid-30s?
I didn't research it, but I'm going to assume it's March and November.
So I would pack, like we have the drop bag. So I would pack to wear something super warm for when you're standing there, getting there early, finding your corral. So a hoodie, a jacket, sweatpants, tights, whatever. And then definitely use that service of the drop bag so that if you want to race in just a singlet and tights or shorts, or you have arm sleeves or whatever, that you can drop that stuff so that you're prepared to actually race the race when you're there. For a lot of people, that depends on just like what your comfortability is. If you want to run in a sweatshirt just because that's what you feel comfortable in and that's what you did your workouts in, go ahead. Again, this is all about feeling confident and feeling ready for what you're doing. But if it is cold, definitely don't go to the starting line in just what you're going to wear on race day.
Yeah, I don't know if you subscribe to this, but I dress like it's 10 to 15 degrees warmer than it's outside. So if it's 30 degrees out, what would you wear for 45 degrees because you're going to warm up over time? We also will have a clothes donation bin in the start village, so you can drop your clothes off in the bag that you want at the end. But then if you want like a sweater to stay warm in those 5 minutes when in the crowds for the national anthem, wear that sweater. And then once that horn goes off, you kind of toss something to the side. We'll donate everything, all the clothes.
Please don't have it be your most beloved sweater because you will not receive it back.
I have
It will
seen
be
so many
donated.
Boston jackets on the side of the course. I'm like, why? Why would you? Different conversation.
Those are pricey jackets.
We have
one more question.
One more question. There's an athlete who's missed 4 weeks of training due to a knee injury and wondering if a hilly course would be challenging.
It's a physical therapist doctor question. I'm not, it's individualized as well. So I would check in with your PT. We got some great ones in New York City, HSS, or some other ones. So check in with PT and talk to them. And then when they get to clearance, you can get a running coach maybe to help you get a few miles in. But it might be a run walk, change your expectations, and just go out and have fun and take a video and selfies while you're out there.
We want to make sure you show up as healthy as possible to that start line and to the finish line. Okay, so I think we are done with the questions in the audience. We've taken a lot of questions from the live audience as well online. We want to thank you all so much for braving this cold, cold weather to be here. For those of you who are running your half marathon for the first time, you're going to do great. This is going to be your best time so far. And for those of you who are running it another one, congrats in advance. We hope to see you out here in about less than 5 weeks for our next panel on March 5th. And then at the experience, as we get ready for March 16th, I want to give a big shout out to our panelists, Coach Steve, Matt, and Courtney, as well as our ASL interpreters who've done a fabulous job. Hopefully we've made their job easier and not more difficult. Also want to give a shout out to Coach Jen, AJ, making sure this live stream is going well, my colleague Brian back there, and our colleagues at the Run Center who always make it very homely here. Thank you, folks, and we will see you next time. Have a good night.